Hello, 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 you far-right thugs. I hope all of my far-right thugs have had a nice... it's very difficult to have had a nice week because it's been one of the most evil weeks in British history. But I hope all you far-right thugs are doing well. And Charlie is here and Richard is here. So hello, 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 and welcome to
Hello.
Heretic. We are an online public house which meets on Mondays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York, in which we discuss the base things of the day from a vaguely psychological perspective. I think that this video, this live stream is probably being suppressed because of its subject matter. Because there were things that happened to Richard earlier, which imply to me that there's a general feeling that if you've got over 200,000 subs, I don't know what it is, what the border is, and you're discussing this. They're experimenting with not liking him. Anyway, cheers, everybody. Cheers, Charlie. Cheers, Richard. Cheers,
Cheers, Edward.
Good. Cheers, Crow Cat Cinema. Cheers, Liam Griffin. Have I seen what's happening in Birmingham? I have seen what's happening in Birmingham. Very interesting that Sky, they're doing everything they can to make out the Muslim Defence League are these lovely, kind, reasonable guys. And then the Sky TV reporter is standing there reporting on them. They come up and start abusing.
Oh, we've lost Ed.
Basically, and goodness knows why. I hope she's okay, and they have to cut her off. So yes, that's there. Anyway, so Hergen Gulligan, Capis, Saludo, Prost, Turvisexy, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. So last week, Charlie, when you weren't here, Richard had been so busy all day weightlifting and stuff that he hadn't even heard of what had happened in Southport. I had to explain to him what had occurred. And we were busy talking about Hugh Edwards and such like when we had Lipton on here, and this week, I mean, it's been it's been one of the most extraordinary weeks I think since the death of Princess Diana.
Yeah, it's I've been banging on about I better because I'm worried about Keir Stalin shutting down my YouTube. He's already got rid of my Twitter. I got nuked. I was one of the early high-profile Twitters nuked for spreading the hashtag, which I can't even say here, like such and such or civil, and I won't say the word, but unrest is the word I'm going with today. But we've had the pro-Hamas crowd smashing up London and intimidating people for months. We saw the kind of overnight 20 banks that were doing business with Israel were smashed one night, and I said, here it comes. And I did a report from Blackburn 3 months ago, almost to the day, saying confronting the coming civil war. And just seeing whole neighborhoods that are totally Islamist, like completely, adhering to a different culture and way of being. And so when it finally snapped, I've always thought to myself, what could top 9/11 for this day and age? What could be bigger than Manchester Arena, Ariana Grande? What could be bigger than 7/7? And I thought, if some crazed knife man decides to live stream the knifing of children, then that could probably spark it. And I just hope that the CCTV from that nursery where the attack took place in Southport is never released, because I worry that England will then truly burn when we see those images.
Yes, I wonder what they're suppressing. They're not being very upfront and frank about any of the details of this guy. I was saying earlier, is he Tutsi or Houthi? He looks Tutsi.
So he looks elite.
He looks as in the tall trees. But my understanding is that the surname Rudakabana it means something like "be eternal," and it was the Hutus that converted to Christianity and took on peculiar names, religious names of that kind. So I think he's going to be eternally reviled. So there's going to be some kind of eternity to him. But it's just a sort of bad luck, really. That our friend. Who ran as mayor of Manchester, ran to be the mayor of Manchester.
Nick Buckley.
Mr. Buckley, yes. Mr. Buckley has put an interesting sort of timeline on Twitter of what's happened. And so he's saying his little breakdown was July the 4th. You have the election of Muslim MPs and, the Muslim Islamist MPs, Free Palestine and so forth. July the 11th, they announced the government that they're going to give people out of prison after 40% of their sentence. July the 15th, we learned that the London Metropolitan Police haven't solved a single crime for a year in 166 areas. July the 17th, you have an assault in Bournemouth by a Muslim, and then he's not given community service because he can't speak English. July the 18th, you have a Muslim stealing a Rolex and a spared jail. Also, July the 18th, you have the rioting in Leeds, and you have then rioting in the Bangladeshi community in London. July 23rd, Amjan Chowdhury is sent to prison. July 23rd, British Army officer stabbed 12 times by a Nigerian immigrant. July 26th, protests after the Greater Manchester, the police at the airport. It turns out that female police officer's nose has been broken, and then you have people rioting in their favour. In various parts of the country, Muslims rioting in their favour. Then you have the stabbing in Southport, and so it was all building up. People being extremely unhappy about the situation, and to a final explosion. The tinder sparked by just something so vile, the killing of 3 little girls. By, of course, people can say what they want. Immigrant, is he descended from Edward III? No, by a foreigner. And it's it's the worst time for it to happen, of course, because it's hot, and so and people are on holiday, and so they carry on and on and on like this. I mean, it's getting quite dangerous. I mean, the police were completely overwhelmed in Rotherham. I saw the footage of this at this Holiday Inn or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I saw it,
and they were basically able to set it on fire and break into it.
Yeah, no. Richard, like, what do you think psychologically? Like, is it inevitable? Like, Elon Musk tweeted yesterday, civil war is inevitable at this point, and he's been dissected. Even Keir Starmer's gone against Elon Musk. But is there a certain inevitability to the dignity of a kind of collective consciousness of an ethnic group, in this case, English whites, that, there's like a final straw that breaks the camel's back, and then the kind of wave, the hormones go throughout the population, and it's back to like primate.
I think so. I think dignity is an interesting word, because I think if we look historically at the worst crimes against humanity, the worst genocides, there's usually an element of humiliation that comes first, where the group that feels humiliated, the group that has some sort of historical grievance, commits the worst atrocities and it's the humiliation that drives that. I mean, if you look at Weimar Republic, massive inflation, it was mainly white working class Germans. It was their frustration that the man with the little mustache was appealing to, and a target was allocated, and he said, this is the source of all your troubles. If you just deal with these people, then it will be awful. But real men, real German men, they will do bad things in the name of Germany, and after 5 or 10 years of horror, we will go back to a utopia. And so the psychology of utopianism frightens me, combined with the humiliation and the desire for blind vengeance. Because what we've seen here in Liverpool, as far as riots go, is largely little scally scumbags attacking local businesses and terrorizing everybody indiscriminately. There's just this sense of, I think, as Ed said, the tinderbox. It's just waiting for one spark, and it really will go off. I really don't know how the people in charge didn't imagine that this was coming.
Well, the left keep going on about, the lefties are saying, oh, why are they going after Muslims or Asians or such, like, when the guy was maybe a Christian Rwandan who was born in Cardiff? He wasn't even an immigrant, the left are saying. But what I think we're seeing with the little scallies in Liverpool, and with what's Ed and I are very shocked by the footage from Rotherham yesterday. It was something out of the Euromaidan riots from Kiev 10 years ago. Like, I've never seen such ferocity in a kind of group of people coming for that. So I think it's gone from the left misidentifying it as a kind of like ignorant Russian bot fueled misinformation campaign. I think what we're actually seeing is a very primal race war starting to appear.
Yeah, I would concur. That's the thing. That's the thing, that the cognitive dissonance that you're seeing on the left, as usual, as their worldview, which gives them their sense of morality and narcissistic superiority to granite the discussion, but it's true though. But is such that they try and come up with these justifications. Like, oh, he's not an immigrant. He was born in Cardiff. Oh, he's not a. We know perfectly well what this is about. This is about native English people, white people, working class white people who feel they are displaced, who feel their lives have been fundamentally changed, who feel all of these things for a long time because of immigrants. And it's slowly built up. But when it gets to a point where they're not even safe in the streets, when it gets to a point where they're not safe in the schools, and you get this little boy that had to practically go into hiding because he was accused of bullying a Syrian kid, and it turns out the Syrian kid, well, anyway, that's sub judice. But and it goes more and more and more of it. And the worst thing is with these small boats, that they see these people living in hotels, getting
nice hotels,
probably steak and chips for dinner, and for them a bloody pot of coffee in the UK at the supermarket is like £8, which is cheaper here in Finland. And it's the little pleasures in life, and they don't earn very much, and all they want is no change. All they want is for things to just be like they were, and then for them to be confronted with this idea that these people could just kill 3 kids at random. Yeah, and of course these could be mine.
It starts very small, Ed. It starts like 25 years ago when some neighborhoods near other neighborhoods realized that their milk was getting stolen. The milkman would leave the milk on the front porch, and then it would get stolen. And then 10 years later, families would notice that their little daughters and sons didn't play out as much on the streets because there were maybe adolescent or early 20s men coming up and catcalling their little girls. And so it slowly erodes that sense of dignity and that sense of, that life is enjoyable, that, we can all carry our cross. We can all put up with the kind of various strifes that we all have in our personal lives, as long as there is a grand narrative that it's going to be okay, rule Britannia,
that was very interesting, the way that they were writing. What's the word I want? The way that they were encouraging each other and so forth. In the Rotherham riot around the hotel by going Yorkshire,
very identity.
Chanting it, this strong sense of identity, that's kind of all they have. That's what they hold on to. They are Yorkshiremen. They are English, and as they see it, they are being invaded, and the lives of their children and themselves are being just ruined by these foreigners. And part of it is perhaps projection. I mean, there's an element of truth in it, and it took this build-up of things that has happened since the election. It's been so conspicuous. There's 2-tier policing, and that was fascinating as well in terms of cognitive dissonance. That a Sky News journalist today put that to Sir Mark Rowley about 2-tier policing, and Mark Rowley was so angry that he grabbed his microphone and chucked it on the ground, and walked off.
Soviet Union.
That's a reasonable adult response to a rational question and valid question.
I bet you during the meeting, in government, I bet you he got his anus pounded by the hard questions as to why the police are not maintaining order, and he was feeling a bit vulnerable. And then that was the final question that sent him over the edge. And because he's like a fine British man, he did it in a very passive aggressive way. That is, oh no, you're slightly in my way. I'll destroy your microphone. Slightly in my way.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely pathetic behaviour. But at least he is of a reasonable height. I mean, I noticed in the riots, and I don't know where it was it in Bolton? They put up a female midget as one of the police officers. In riot gear. I mean, I think that's just being silly. It's been building up for a very, very long time. You're not allowed to talk about it. Even now, we can't openly and clearly say. That's why there's all this combobulation in the media. You can't clearly say, look, this is foreigner versus British. No, he was born in the country. We know perfectly well what we mean by British, members of our family with common ancestors. That's what we mean.
So the dream for the lefties, the Keir Stalin dream, is that even though there'll be arena bombings or 7/7s or little girls stabbed in the nursery Taylor Swift dance thing, even though these things happen from time to time, the dream says that they're just natural disasters that happen on the way to utopia.
Pretty much, yeah. It's almost as if he thinks that these are a price worth paying.
Yeah,
it's a price worth paying for having a large array of takeaway food.
What I don't understand is the lack of fear of the indigenous population, because I'm afraid of the indigenous population. I'm afraid of what the response of, well, it's a majority white working class men who become angry and their defensive instincts, their protective instincts are kicked off. Why aren't the people in power in the left for the last 2 decades? Why didn't they consider that? You can't continuously humiliate. Like, if you continuously targeted Muslims or you continuously targeted anyone for decades on the basis of their ethnicity, what did you think would be the end result? At the end of the day, it's white working class men who like in white countries, who fill the military. It's exactly the same as Germany. That's why it was called the Workers' Union. That's why he lied and, well, whatever. He said it was a socialist revolution. I'm afraid of them. I'm afraid of what comes next. People think I'm overreacting, and they don't think we could have a Nazi-style party come up. But I think it's perfectly possible that within our lifetimes we could see people being shoved onto buses and stuck in internment camps on the basis of their surname, on the basis of their DNA results, or on the basis of the religion they practice. And I don't think it's 10 years away. I think it's a couple of years
The thing
away.
is, they're bringing. That's what I argue in my new book. I mean, shameless plug, but that's what I argue in my book, Woke Eugenics, how social justice is a mask for social Darwinism. That's exactly the argument, that this is an evolutionary battle that's going on, and the woke are the kind of angels of death that are bringing about accelerationism, such that what you end up with is all the people that are genetically mutant, basically all of the spiteful mutants being brought into infertility cults, transsexuality, whatever, not having children, and all you're going to be left with is genetically very right-wing conservative people who are going to be very group-oriented and group-selected. And there will be good things about that, in so much as we will have free speech with regard to things we don't at the moment, like race or whatever, but there will be bad things about that. And for a contrarian like me or Charlie, or I don't know, maybe Richard's a bit of a contrarian, that's the problem. It's not going to be some utopia.
I'm a moderate.
It's not going to be some utopia. It's not. It's going to be like living in a university Christian union for your whole life.
Yes, and I am frightened of that. I'm frightened of it, but they don't seem to be. So at the same time as they say, oh, right wing, the number of times in the mass media in the UK recently, they were like, oh, middle-aged white man, and it was like, is this supposed to be a slur? Why are you saying this?
Well, yes, it is, and that was the terrible thing, that this woman, Kemi Badenoch, who's starting to be the leader of the Conservative Party, she said, oh, I'm not going to be lectured by some middle-aged white man. That's what she said with regard to someone that criticised her. That is meant to be a slur.
But you're literally shooting holes in the boat in which you stand. Where can that go? It's like I'm sorry, it's a white majority country.
What it is, I'll tell you what it is. The only explanation for lefties as to why, some groups might be, in their view, hoarding all the wealth or hoarding the property or hoarding the good jobs. It's not because they're maybe like Chinese grandparents who come to the West and work hard, sacrifice, force their kids to do well, or like other groups like that. Their only explanation is that it must be unfair. It must be that white people are oppressing everyone else, instead of it being a kind of open democratic free-for-all where everyone does their best.
But that's white supremacy. That's white supremacy. That's a white supremacist position, because you're saying only white people have all the power, and only whites are clever enough and evil enough to maintain that. You've got to give credit where credit's due. There are Chinese, there are Indian, there are Hindu, there are Muslim.
Oh, well, then they call them white aligned. I've heard that phrase.
God's sake, really?
So they absolutely refer to East Asians as white aligned.
To give them the power, then that's still white supremacy. They use white supremacy narratives via the back door, and I'm like, how is nobody else seeing this?
It's true. They're Machiavellian. They like the idea of power, and so they like the idea that they are in a powerful group, and whites are for them a powerful group. And so
Right.
that's I think that's how it develops. But if you look at the way that Keir Starmer responded, I mean, I just think Tony Blair wouldn't respond like that. I mean, Tony Blair ultimately caused all this and should be held to account. But he wouldn't. He's too clever and politically savvy. He would never call them far right thugs.
Wow, it's so dangerous. That's
Gordon Brown did. But he didn't do so publicly. It was a hot mic. And he didn't know it was being recorded. And he referred to that woman, Gillian Duffy, was that her name, as just some bigoted woman, basically. But he wouldn't have said that in public. Whereas
what would Blair have done? You know more about Blair than me.
What is important is that he would have just come up with a load of nice sounding things.
Yeah, brought everyone together. He would have just brought everyone together. Can I just add, for everyone in the chats, I'm keeping one corner of an eyeball on the chats. Could you guys give an update on what's happening in Plymouth? Because I saw 5 live streams in 5 minutes just before I came on the Jolly Heretic show. So can you guys get an update? Have the Muslim crowd and the English crowd clashed? What are the police horses doing? Is it kicking off? Because this is what, day 6, day 7 of English riots. It's not slowing down. Rotherham yesterday was an intensification. So its momentum is strong.
And the horses are Shia Muslim as well, as we discussed last week.
Oh, yes.
Horses are Shia Muslim. We discussed this last week. I don't know
yes. Sorry, we did.
So there's a reference there. So like, horses are Shiite Muslim.
Someone saying DJE Media is covering Plymouth, which is a good channel. He's a good guy.
Sorry, who?
DJE Media.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's the one that covered Southport.
Yes, and also Rotherham. He did a good Rotherham stream, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was very good. I was impressed by that. Hello, DJ Media. How if you're watching, how do you do? I was very impressed by that. It was very good. I just find it amazing that it's just this knee-jerk reaction of calling these people far right thugs, not just far right, but far right thugs. Interestingly, the word thug, of course, is a reference to a group of Indians in 1810 that went around stealing stuff. So basically, you say they're like Indians. But far right thugs, and we know, and this is the thing about humiliation that Richard was talking about earlier, and it fits back to what Sojlestine said or whatever. We know they're lying now, and unfortunately, social media means that and so many people are on social media. It's only going to be bloody boomers that aren't going to be on social media. That we can just see it. Like, you literally, I was watching Sky TV, and this woman was talking about far right thugs, or whatever, i.e. white people, and you're seeing Muslims behind her with machetes. Walking behind her. I'm not aware there's been any cameraman or whatever, or reporter that's been basically intimidated off air by far right thugs, like members of the Muslim Defence League. Clearly so. Look at what happened in Bolton. You had a near clash between the two groups. And then you had I think was it in Bolton, you had them saying, we don't care about the police, literally saying to the police, we don't care about the police, we don't need you, we'll look after ourselves. And they're allowed to walk around wearing what is clearly a uniform, a black uniform. Do they wear that every day? No, that's a uniform. That goes against the Public Order Act 1936. It's a crime. Did they do anything about it? No. Whereas if a white person does anything, then they get beaten up by the police. So it is two-tier policing. This is evidencing it, and we're seeing it before our eyes. And it gets to the point where it's like in communism in Romania or something, where just nobody believes anything that's being said by the mainstream media and by the authorities at all.
Yeah.
And
the worst part is, sorry to jump in, like they're lying, and we know they're lying. But do you think we're at the stage, Ed, where they know that we know they're lying?
Yes, I think that they do know that they know that we know they're lying, and that's why they're so desperate that all he can do is say, "Oh, this is not protest; it's thuggery, far right thugs." When it's perfectly obvious that if you actually look at the streams of this stuff, it's just okay. Yes, there's yobbos, there's whatever that get involved in this kind of stuff, but it's concerned working class people. That's what it is. Yeah. I was watching one from Dundalk earlier today. That's another thing that it's done, is it's united after 400 years of conflict. You have marching down central Belfast, one chap with a tricolour and one chap with the flag of Ulster, with the red hand of Ulster, together, united.
They finally unified Ireland.
They did what Tony Blair couldn't quite do, what Bill Clinton couldn't quite do, or nobody could quite do, which is unite the people of Ulster to save themselves from what they've done to Ulster over the last 8 years.
So, gentlemen, Sorry, go on, Richard. Go on, Richard.
I'm just going to say, just to shoehorn a little bit of psychology there, it's a common enemy syndrome, isn't it? When you have a common enemy, what we tend to, and it's not nice, I'm not saying this is a good thing, what we tend to go back to is back to biological essentials, like the aesthetics of how you look. You look genetically like me, things are going to shit, I'm going to side with you. It's not a good thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing. That is just human psychology.
Yeah. And gentlemen, like, do I look enough like you two, being half Brazilian, my Brazilian half descended from the Portuguese and half Scottish? Am I enough British?
Yes,
we will have to test you. It's the size of the skull and so on, and then probably you will get
my
the
forceps
uniform.
that I used in that video. I will measure you. No, I don't think anyone questioned that the girl she was from Madeira, one of the little girls that died.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that Portuguese? Is that Portuguese?
Yeah. It's Portuguese colony. So, and I don't think anyone questioned that what we were dealing with was obviously it was a European. But
I wanted to ask. Sorry to jump in again. Like a big question, like people are asking: has the mass migration, illegal mass migration of the last 20 years, is it by design or is it by incompetence?
I suspect it's by both. Well, because the guy, Andrew Tether, said that they wanted to rub the right's nose in diversity. So that was by design. Labour, they deliberately opened up the borders deliberately.
Is there not an economic gain, Ed? Is there nothing that do massive corporations not gain from the cheap labour, or is that not a valid argument?
Well, I suppose there was a period in which you saw the cost of food go down and down and down, and the cost of labour go down and down and down, and that was because of globalization. So I remember, in about the year 2000, a loaf of bread at Tesco was 10 pence for the cheapest kind of bread, like Mighty White, whatever, crap bread, white bread, but it was 10 pence. And food has gone back up now because the population is soaring because of the world, because of China industrializing at a pace, and all kinds of things. So there was probably a period of it being optimum of high immigration plus, with the results of a high standard of living. But that's now gone, clearly. I mean, nobody can afford a house or see a doctor.
I just recalled a second theory that I heard from somebody, that if you bring immigrants in, the left in most countries is the one that brings immigrants in. Does that mean you're going to get more votes? You're more likely.
You create a client state. So these people, you basically bring in poor people, and because they're going to do rubbish jobs, they're going to be poor, and those people are going to be disproportionately likely to vote for the party of big government. And so about 85% of Muslims vote Labour. It's gone down a bit because of Gaza and so forth, but it's about 85%. Whereas Hindus are much more wealthy, and so therefore it's much more sort of evenly balanced what they vote.
Can I ask one more ignorant question? So it gives me a chance to learn something as well. Is the left in most countries typically for big government?
I think.
Okay.
Pretty much. Yeah.
So they lean authoritarian, not libertarian.
It depends on what, I suppose, doesn't it?
So they believe that the solution to social ills is more intervention, and obviously intervention requires structure, and for them that's governmental structure. So they love it.
But they're less these would be the people that would be arguing back in the 50s that there shouldn't be blasphemy laws, or that they would be against authoritarianism in that sense. Conservative.
So in some contexts, they're anti-authoritarian revolutionary rebels, and then in other contexts, they're like total cock submissives who are like, let daddy do it for me.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Someone's just asked in the comment section, like, do middle-class English whites side with the English patriot protests?
In general,
stereotypically.
I mean, both, yeah, but stereotypically, it's the wokerati who are middle class.
Yeah, and I'd say most of middle classdom in the UK would probably look down on the Tommy Robinson type football hooligans doing this.
So they were thugs, they were yobs, and they would look down on them, and they would project all of the things they don't like about themselves onto the working class. And the thing is, with the middle class, are inherently. I mean, I did a video on this years ago. The middle class are always the problem. The middle class fear falling back into the working class,
Yeah.
and they probably can't get into the upper class, and so they deal with this via virtue signaling. They don't have the money to be upper class, so they try to attain greater status than the upper class by saying, "Oh, I'm more virtuous than you."
Yeah.
And that's what they always do. They're more religious than you. I'm more virtuous than you. I'm more educated than you. I'm more civilized. And that's how they operate. And then you get these moral panics, which always come out of the middle class, and the middle class being concerned about the activities of the upper class and the working class. So, like Puritanism came out of the middle class, for example. Sorry, Richard, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, I don't know if the question came from somebody who's not in the UK, but it probably is also worth throwing in there. There's the UK, which is split between London, which is its own thing, and then the rest of the country. And the Wokerati are predominantly focused around London, aren't they?
Yeah, probably London and to a lesser extent parts of other large.
Yeah, and Cheshire and South Manchester, the Didsbury sets, South Didsbury, darling. It's like a Crouch End in London, very, very left, very, very much so, but very, very posh as well, very landed.
They read the Guardian.
Landed lefties.
Oh, they love it, because you can afford to be a lefty when you've got daddy's estate to go back to. Saltburn.
Oh, yeah,
you go back
you
to
won't
Saltburn.
see it. You won't see the policies you're voting for.
It's what Rob Henderson said. It's a luxury belief. Eventually, you get to a point where you have a luxury belief. That belief allows you to morally grandstand. It has terrible consequences for society, but it doesn't have terrible consequences for you. And so you can go. I live in Guildford.
Go on. Sorry.
It's great. I live in Guildford. Diversity is great. We have an Indian restaurant, a Chinese restaurant. We have we even have a Thai restaurant these days. I get exactly. You get all the benefits of multiculturalism, i.e., takeaway food, but none of the bad things. Oh, I love multiculturalism. I can get it's only 40 minutes on the train to London. Yes, but that's the point. You don't live in London. You go back to Guildford at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So anyway, look, I was a poem. We have a resident poet here at the Jolly Heretic Public House, Mr. Quinn, and he has written a poem with regard to today's discussion, and this is as follows: 25 years of New Labour, cut to the heart like a sabre, mass immigration across the whole nation, and a far-right thug's now my neighbour. Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn, and if you would like to buy Mr. Quinn's book of poetry, it is, of course, available on the old Amazon, as is my new book. If you would like an introduction to my thinking, The Naked Classroom, the evolutionary psychology of your time at school, in which I introduce all of my ideas basically from the perspective of being at school and wondering about what's going on.
Sorry, someone in the comment section, he was one of my viewers. He goes, "Who's that posh twat on the left?"
I saw.
So I want to introduce you, Ed. I want to say he's my friend Ed Dutton. He's the Jolly Heretic. And he's a champion in upsetting lefties to the point where that far left organization, Hope Not Hate, has written a hit piece on him. He's top lefty troll. And so you should support.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to emphasize that I'm the only person on this panel that didn't go to private school.
There you go.
So I may sound posh, but that's because my dad's background was posh.
Richard, were you a boarder as well? Were you a boarder?
Yes.
All right. There was no rape at my boarding school. It was quite tame. There's a little bit of homoeroticism, but no gay rape.
Oh well. I mean,
that's only because you wanted it.
I know. I'm actually, when I saw the revelations out of my old school, Edinburgh Academy, I was like, what was I ugly? Was I not good enough? It's like when Chandler's boss and friends didn't slap him on the ass, he got upset.
Was Nicky Campbell at your school?
Yes.
That's your school, because there's a big
Academy,
American viewers. Nicky Campbell is a TV presenter and whatever, quite famous guy, and he went to Charlie's school, and there's been a lot in the news about how he was sexually abused at that school in the 70s, I suppose, maybe a bit more, but he's about 20 years older than us. I don't know how old he is. So that's your school. So obviously it got a bit tamer by the time you were there in the 90s.
Yeah. There was a lot of, because it was a boys' boarding school, but they allowed girls in sixth form. Like at the time when you need to really not have girls around to get your A levels, they introduced girls, and it just changed the dynamic completely. And it was quite a sexual. I think all high schools are sexually charged, but luckily for me and my anus, it wasn't charged towards me. So
Well, I do look in this book at why it is that nonces are overrepresented in the teaching profession. I mean, it's obvious why, really, but I do look at that and why you end up with sexual relationships between teachers and pupils and the evolutionary dynamics of that. So if you want to know about
guys, I'm going to go very quickly while you're talking. The comment section is saying that Plymouth is kicking off. They're rioting hard in Plymouth. So I'm just going to go on DJE and have a look and see, like, get an update.
You report back, and I shall say to Richard though. I mean, I think it was a very interesting word that you used, humiliation, and I think that Theodore Dalrymple has argued that the.
I'm not going to put the audio on, but there's missiles being thrown. There's people running around. This is DJE Media.
Okay.
So I just a free plug for my friend DJE. He owes me now. That'll be £100. Thank you. All
right, but it's the humiliation. The idea is that you have to say things that you know aren't true, and you don't believe, and they know you don't believe. This person, this Rugabana person, he's not an immigrant, he's Welsh. And you have to say these lies. And if people can force you to lie, force you to humiliate you. That's what political correctness and wokeness is about. It's not just about control. It's about people humiliating people, like having them. You must sit here and watch while a completely unrealistic portrayal of your country's history is put on the TV, and you'll bloody well like it. And not only will you not speak out about it, we will make you say you think it's a wonderful thing. And it's been at least 25 years of this humiliation, on and on and on.
There's a beautiful paragraph, that whole paragraph by Theodore Dalrymple. If people want to look it up, it starts, you can do the search term, political correctness is communism writ small. And then you'll get this beautifully written paragraph exactly about what Ed's talking about, which is the whole point of the exercise is not to protect people, it's to humiliate. It's to humiliate, to force you to say lies. It's a very 1984 thing. How many fingers do I have at Winston? No, I don't want you to lie and say that there's 3 fingers there. I want you to really believe. Then we know the party has done its job. It's a horrifying kind of totalitarianism because it's so invasive.
Yeah.
And I want you to mean it. It's like the narcissist demanding to be worshipped, saying, it's not good enough that you say you love me. I want you to sound like you mean it. And that's what this is about. And I hope that we're finally seeing through it, that you no longer do not believe anything they say ever.
But do you feel like I do that it would only really take one person of morally ambiguous standards to come along now and say, listen, guys, the utopia is just over there. Follow me. We're going to have to be a bit rough for 5 years, but after that, it'll get better. I fear that. Am I being paranoid, excessively anxious?
Sort of a slightly meaner version of Nigel Farage. That's what we're talking about.
Well, you know what they say, history doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. And it looks like the kind of balkanized Western Europe that's been balkanized for the reasons that we discussed through all the lefties' policies and for those various reasons is going to kick off. And as I was saying earlier, the inevitability is something that really, really strikes me. And how bad do you guys think it's going to get? Like, do you think these will fizzle out here in England? Or do you think it's going to keep going until the king maybe has to suspend parliament and we have military rule for a year?
Even if it fizzles out, it's coming back. Sorry, Ed.
I think it will fizzle out, but I think it will now be cyclical, and it'll be like Northern Ireland. So it'll fizzle out at the end of the summer, and then it'll come back the following summer, probably worse, and something will spark it. And they will try and crack down with new hate speech laws and whatever. But I think that I do wonder if we've got to a point where, as I say, we know they lie. COVID, I think, is the turning point. I'm sorry if it's a cliche, but it seems to be a turning point. As a person that wasn't in the UK for COVID, I can't believe what you went through and what you put up with. I just can't. But when I hear about it, what people tell me about it, I was like, what? You were basically locked in your house for 2 years. And we didn't have this here. And I can't believe you went through that. And you now know it was for nothing. It was for nothing. And we kind of knew that at the time. because we were going to have this herd immunity, and that was all fine, and everything was understood. But then, suddenly everyone's, oh God, oh Granny might die, oh harm avoidance, oh whatever. And so then we have to do this insanity, and we know they lie. We know they were punishing people for telling the truth about what caused this, and then it was revealed to be the truth by one of their own types, one of their own trusted types. And we know, and I think it's sent so many people down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, just ordinary people, and I think it's
and you know, it was perfect for all the young Zoomers, all the Generation Z out there, you know, the kind of 16 to 24-year-olds at the time, you know, like, because they were brought up on communist TikTok videos that they are the new, you know, vanguard, they are the new Maoists, they're going to take over culturally, mixed in with a lot of that, what Ed was saying about the middle class. You know, they can't beat the aristocracy, but they can become the new cultural aristocracy. And so all of a sudden, capitalism got rocked, because I used to go to a restaurant or into a shop, and because I had the money and they wanted my money, they would treat me nicely to make sure that they got my money. But all of a sudden, that foundation of capitalism got infected with the staff in the shop being able to order you around, and that blew my mind.
Well, with the staff being so ideologically fervent that they weren't prepared to serve somebody because they had different views from them. There was such polarization. And the mask. Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, that as well. Yes. Yeah. Well, that was just basically political signaling, though, wasn't it? I mean, if you didn't wear the mask, then you were signaling.
It was very popular. The mask was very popular with certain elements of the LGTV 4K plus movement because it helped hide some of the stubble. You know, so you could. And
also, they're high mutational loads. So if anyone's going to die of the flu, it's them. But yeah,
I think we saw the effect of them being more digitally native generationally as well. Which my sense of it was, because I was told off a few times by young people serving me, and I got this feeling of like, what's more important, my job and financial stability? Well, I live at home with my mum and dad, so I don't really care. And I could have a really cool story to tell on social media about how I told some middle-aged guy what's up. And I think I really think that's a very important incentive, is that everybody feels now, especially younger people, that they are one step away from fame, one step away from being in the public eye. Why worry about your crappy job at Starbucks when you could be involved in an incident that causes you to go viral and solves all your financial problems?
Yeah. And
I mean, to be fair, statistically, that's not very likely, though, is it?
No, but they're not very good at critical thinking, Edward.
No, but Richard's got a very valid point. You know, like all of a sudden, the little commissars in Starbucks, instead of just being a minimum wage latte maker, they could be the denouncer of a far-right thug refusing to comply or refusing to put a mask on. And you're right. A video that goes viral of a far-right thug being humiliated by a bunch of lefties could be just what they need to launch their 15 minutes of fame.
To extend my little hypothesis here, I actually think that generation has so much time on social media and so much time consuming reality TV that they fantasize there's a camera there even when there isn't anyway. Because so much of what they do is performative. I'll talk to them and I'm like, I don't know who you're talking to. There's no cameras here. There's just me. But there's this performative element to it that sort of transcends the real world moment of a real world interaction and makes the potential social media or media based interaction have more gravity for them psychologically. I know that's a little bit poncy, but I really do think that that's an effect that we're seeing with that generation.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be very aware of their rights as well. Like, that's another thing that I find bizarre with them compared to us. You know, they're aware that, oh, I have this right. You can't do this. You can't do this. You know, I don't know how you can run a school if children have a constant awareness.
Is there
you can't.
Is there an element of teenage rebellion because we became such a kind of like liberal democracy won across the world, and we became like such a superpower in the 80s and 90s that then the young people, Gen Z, or earlier than them, millennials wanted to rebel, and so they want the control because it upsets their libertarian parents.
I think so. Oh, yeah. I think, and that could lead to another effect. We might see the rebellion of young people now being a swing to the left, which brings me back to my earlier point, I am very frightened that we could really swing to a rather nasty, extremist hard right, because that's going to be the rebellion of the day, is to just get rid of woke.
Someone. Sorry to make interrupt. Someone just made the point in the chat that this is like the 60s, but the opposite. And there's some truth in that, in so much as anybody that was in any way rebelling against the 50s, against the regime then, McCarthyism, whatever, was communist, evil communist. Yes. Anyone that wanted civil rights for blacks, evil communist. Anyone that wanted any evil communist. And now it's anyone that wants law and order, safety, the good of their own people, evil, far right
wing thug.
Right wing thug, right wing thug. So it's communist. That was what and it didn't work. It didn't work. People saw through it. People understood it was just a slur, just like far right. It was this elastic slur, this shut up word, which is to reprove you and push you back towards the path of our orthodoxy, via intimidation, and that's exactly what far right is. I mean, it's got to the point where Dominic Frisby, who I interviewed on my show a while ago, he wrote that song that Elon Musk rendered viral, "We're All Far Right Now," in which he just went through all the things that render you far right, which is basically just not being a woke twat, basically. Then you are far right. By the way, Charlie, does Ralph's head still smell that like baby head smell? Nice smell.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like, it's a great smell. And I swear to God, when I enter an enclosed space, middle-aged women can smell him from across the room. And the babies, especially newborn babies, are crack to middle-aged women. I've never seen anything like it. It's like a zombie needing brains. They need to smell your baby's head, and they love it. There must
be some evolutionary reason why their head smells so nice at the one stage at which they, you just need.
I think it's all wired in, hormonally, so that you don't abandon your baby. Then obviously the babies that smell good were taken along when you moved on to the next location.
Yeah, I was imagining there were probably some babies that their head smelled like garlic or something.
Oh yeah, the smelly babies got left behind.
Babies, and they were left behind. They're gone. Left behind. They're gone. They're out. They were
the garlic heads. We're not keeping them.
The ones whose heads smelled of like paint stripper. That subgroup, they were out. They were selected out.
Selected out, unfortunately. There must be as well that there's a universality to the cuteness of babies, isn't there? I think about that. Like we all go, oh, they're so cute. And then I think, well, that's weird. But of course, evolutionarily, it's good if members of the tribe are going, oh, that's cute, instead of going, oh, what's the point of that thing?
Even baby dogs and cats are cute, aren't they?
Yeah, very.
But
cute.
Weirdly, not baby ticks.
No.
They're not cute. They're not cute. Because they go through like a life cycle, and they go through a nymph phase. And some of the ticks I removed from my cat Margaret, they were basically baby ticks. They were very small ticks. And they weren't cute at all. They weren't cute.
Yeah. Speaking of nymphs, I was watching a BBC nature documentary, and I watched a dragonfly larva, a dragonfly nymph, hunt and eat a frog tadpole, and it really upset me on a kind of like hierarchical Darwinian level that a lower creature like an insect larva could take an amphibian, and so I think I have a kind of a might is right like standard thing built in that the kind of higher species.
We are more evolutionarily similar to an amphibian than we are to an insect, aren't we?
Yeah, so it looked like an alien, like a Martian eating an Earthling. Yeah, it was horrible.
I bet if it was between an insect and a spider, you'd support the spider because we're more similar to insects than we are to arachnids.
Oh no, so I'd support the insect. You mean? So I'd be on the side of the big blue bottle or whatever it was caught in the spider.
You'd be on the side of the queue, like that scene in Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, where they ride an ant and the ant is killed by a scorpion.
And that's very sad. I repressed that memory because the little ant is like dying slowly. Like,
hated that.
I'd repress that memory. Thank you, Edward. That was horrible.
He was a lovely little ant, wasn't he? And then they ride a bee, as I recall. They also ride a bee. And we've evolutionarily co-evolved with bees, so we have every reason to like them. But not with wasps, who interestingly are more related to ants than they are to bees.
Really?
Anyway, about half. Yes. Ants evolved from wasps. Anyway, we're about halfway through. So, hello, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. We are, of course, online public house. Meets on Mondays at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York, which we discuss based science and whatever's going on in the world at the moment from a generally based science type perspective. If you have any questions, then you can please send them in either on Entropy or on YouTube or on Odyssey, and we will, of course, answer them today, unless they're complicated and difficult, in which case it might take a week or so. If you are new, please subscribe. Subscribe here on the Jolly Heretic, or if you're watching or subscribe on Richard's channel, Richard Grannon, whatever it is, philosophy, whatever he's doing, and subscribe on Charlie's channel, Charlie Veach. And also, if you like what I do, then you can support me if you can subscribe on my Substack, the Jolly Heretic, where I put all of the spiciest content that I don't put on YouTube, and where if you like what I do, you can support it for the cost of a pint of beer a month, and you can see links in descriptions if you want to get to help out the channel, and of course you can buy my books, all of which are available on Amazon, and the most recent one is The Naked Classroom, the evolutionary psychology of your time at school. In fact, no, it's not. The most recent one is Woke Eugenics, but I don't have a copy of that yet, so I can't use it as a visual aid. So I don't have a copy. If you want, just anyway, look, I'm getting confused. So wasps down, hornets up. Yeah, there's a guy online that my son watches, and I've started watching him. And his raison d'etre is to get stung by as many unpleasant insects as possible.
Horrible. It's traumatic, and it goes into extreme close-ups in 4K, and you can see the wasp like contracting its abdomen to squirt it. Like you see its shaft pulsate as it squirts its venomous seed into his arm.
A shaft snapper.
It's horrible. A shaft snapper.
Yeah, and I saw once this documentary where this Japanese guy had captured one of those Asian hornets, the big buggers, and I don't know how he'd done it, and he'd removed its stinger, and then he detached a little string around its neck, and he sort of walked it like a dog. Like that, yeah. Like you know that film Kes?
Yeah, with the little eagle.
Like that, but with an Asian hornet. He sort of trained it, and it went up on top of the moor to train his hornet, and then the guy that plays this PE teacher comes up and he goes, "Hey, our Tajimori, our father's deed. He's deed. You're gonna have to go down mine," and stuff like that. So anyway, good. So hello everybody. So yes, right. Where are we? We're taking some questions, so I'm going to turn to those. So the first of these is for Richard. Oh, come on. It says, from Low Mercury Tuna, thank you, sir. Did historic trauma cause borderline personality disorder, or did borderline personality disorder cause bad historic events, which we then incorrectly attribute to causing borderline personality disorder?
What?
But did historic trauma cause borderline personality disorder, or does borderline personality disorder cause bad historical events, which we then incorrectly attribute to causing borderline personality disorder?
Well, all trauma is historic, and if you're looking at it from a psychological lens and you're trying to assess personality disorders, it's always historic. And so borderline personality disorder it's not real in the sense that a virus or a bacteria is real. It's a model for understanding a response to trauma across time. So there probably were people who we would consider to have been BPD. There must have been throughout the entirety of human history. I mean, they're operating the same software and hardware, evolutionarily speaking. So it's probably always been with us. There are social factors that will exacerbate it and make it worse. But I imagine BPD, MPD, psychopathy, all of these models that we've created in the modern world have always been with us.
Well, I'd argue that in the past they were identified and probably executed earlier on, and nowadays it's politically incorrect to execute BPD people for their craziness and the way that they drag everyone down. They're drowning in their own self-loathing and hatred, and anyone that tries to help them gets grabbed onto like a drowning person in a swimming pool and pushed under as the BPD person tries to kind of raise themselves up. So I think in the past, tribes, especially small bands of early humans, would have identified the psychos, and little Toot Toot would have gone hunting with the crazy guy, and then Toot Toot would have come back and said, "Oh, sorry, tribe, the crazy nasty guy, he fell off a cliff. There's nothing I could have done." and that's how they would have done it.
It's 100% the case. We know that there are tribes. I think some tribes that are still alive today that can issue a death penalty even just for lying. So you wouldn't get years of lying and gaslighting and everything. One lie, and they would say, well, you're damaging the social cohesion of the tribe. If you can't give us realistic data about what's out there, we don't have the resources to be dealing with your fantasy and your delusion. You will either be excommunicated or we will just kill you. We're gonna kill you. So yeah, there's no doubt that in lower resource environments, the tolerance for pathology has to be lower.
And that's what it is. They don't have the time or the resources to kind of set up a tribunal and bring in social workers. It's like either we get rid of the psycho or we all die. We all get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah,
and they do it at the very beginning of life. So they come up with, if any child in a lot of the Amazonian tribes or various African tribes that is crippled or anything wrong with it, they'll just kill it or leave it to die. And that's.
Do you think there's an element of BPD in power bringing about an inevitable civil unrest in this country, Richard?
In our power structures, 100%.
Yeah.
I think narcissism comorbid with borderline, which means you'll have a person who, by nature of the comorbidity, has to cycle through psychopathy. People say we're in an epidemic of narcissism. Maybe we're definitely in an epidemic of borderline personality disorder, and the way that countries act, their foreign policies, the way that they try to represent reality to the people within the country, it's extraordinarily borderline. If you try to imagine the nation as an individual, far more borderline than it is NPD.
And people are saying that Sir Keir Stalin, the Prime Minister of Britain, for our international audience, is very reminiscent of the BPD of Justin Trudeau in Canada.
I mean, with both of them, fragile narcissism, which some clinicians would argue is just a manifestation of a certain type of BPD, but they're both definitely fragile narcissists. In my humble opinion, I haven't met them, but based on the behavior I've seen.
Yeah, Keir Starmer just looks so out of his depth. I thought when he became the leader of the Labour Party, many couple of years ago, I thought this man has no charisma. He's like a robot. He looks like a dinner lady that's tried to change gender to a man. That's what he reminds me of.
Yeah,
he's a dreadful, evil, vile man, and he is the reason why this whole thing about refugees whether being put up in hotels and treated with luxury. That's him. That's him as public prosecutor, as a lawyer that pressured for that to be the case. So one of the things that's really riling up ordinary working class people who haven't got much money is seeing people that are foreigners being treated better than them, and he is the reason behind that policy. As a lawyer, he campaigned as a campaigning lefty lawyer for that to be instituted.
And one of the things he brought in, I found out, Keir Starmer and all his human rights things, I heard from an ex-cop just meeting him in Lancaster, chatting. And I don't know if it's true, if he was just getting excited and saying stories, but apparently in the United Kingdom, for any arrest of an ethnic minority that involves force, a separate report needs to be made to ensure it's not racist, so that when the police arrest a far-right thug, i.e. a native Englishman, there's no extra paperwork. And that might be why we see the two-tier policing out there.
Well, if that's the case, then we inherently have two-tier policing. If there's extra paperwork, if there's extra paperwork because a person is foreign, then there's two-tier policing. And equally, you could argue this whole notion of non-crime incidents, which they are only against homosexuals or against transsexuals or against foreigners or against whatever. They're never against a person who is a white British man. One cannot commit a non-crime hate incident against such a person. So therefore, it's.
Oh my God! Sorry to jump in. DJE Media has been injured. He's bleeding badly. He's been hit in the head with a brick on the live stream. A lot of different accounts are saying this. So I hope he's okay. He's been badly injured, unfortunately. He's the hardest working YouTuber out there. He's been at most of these protests.
Oh God! Oh no!
So, as we're on air, so everyone's seeing people are watching us and keeping an eye on the Plymouth riots.
I hope he's all right.
I know. Jeez.
What the hell are they throwing? Bricks or something?
Yeah, another one's just said Frank Thomas saying DJE has been hit by a brick. He's being treated now. He's been assaulted by a piece of concrete. Other people are saying. So, man, I worry about that because in these big riots, so many people behind you are throwing objects at the building or the kind of riot police, and it's very easy to get hit in the crossfire. So it might not even be the opposing side throwing
No, it
objects.
could be his own. It could be.
It's more likely
it's
to
gonna
be
come
someone behind them, closer to them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's just the problem with it. But it was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous what was going on in Rotherham.
Someone is saying it was a left wing that threw a brick at him because he's now being recognized, and because he's a blonde, blue-eyed Englishman. I think he's now a victim of the race war. If it's true that it was a lefty that attacked him, that could, he might be able to report that as a racial attack. But of course, it'll go nowhere because he's white.
And the police are corrupt. Yeah. So I mean, that's the other thing that's terrible. So many policemen are just ordinary people that become policemen, and there's a certain psychological type, and you've got to be quite brave. I mean, you are. There is a degree to which, and you see it with these riot police. You could get seriously injured, and there's cases of them being killed, of course, of them being murdered for being policemen. Just like you get people, like a soldier gets killed, but yet in order to do their jobs, they have to kowtow to the small minority of ideologues that have managed to take over the British police force, and they have no option but to do that.
You wouldn't want to be police now. You wouldn't want to be police in the UK now.
No, and you see the quality, like watching that Rotherham video yesterday, Ed. The quality of the riot police with the shields are like a kind of gallery of lefties, like all sorts of things strange with them, like weird shapes, all small and pudgy or too skinny. I saw one, they were taunting what appeared to be a 65-year-old policeman, riot man, and he was like
with the white hair.
Yeah.
I'd say I thought the frontline police officers retired when they were about 55.
Yeah, he was like a pensioner.
It's a real shame to see because I've watched some of these riot videos. Some have been sent to me by the lads today. Most of them are out of shape. Whereas if you look at the Dutch or the German riot police, they look like they're ready for a CrossFit session now. But
the Finnish police, I have never seen an out of shape Finnish police officer, or indeed a short Finnish police officer. And they just get on with it. There was a case in Oulu, for example, a few years ago. There was this Somali, and he went into a pub in a part of Oulu, rough part of Oulu, with an axe. And he was attacking people, and these 3 police officers just turned up and shot him dead.
Good.
They didn't ask questions. There's no sodding about. Just shot him dead. And that's that. And also they're armed. They're armed with guns. The Finnish police gives you a certain confidence that you're going to be safe. You've got a gun, whereas our police officers have truncheons.
Which don't seem to be very well trained into use either. It's not like they're unarmed, but they're all BJJ black belts. These are just, I don't know what we're doing. I don't really know what the state police
They're not like the dad of Axel Rudiber Cabana. His dad Alphonse is a black belt in karate.
In karate, yeah,
in karate, and he was in various competitions around the world.
Yeah, and Rwanda is considered a good place to do business. I mean, we don't talk about the machete genocide in 1994. No, we ignore that. But East Africa seems to be doing better than West Africa. Like Ethiopia, considered to have the safest airline in Africa. You've got the kind of Kenyans, very very good long distance runners, and as well, like you don't really hear problems coming out of Kenya too often. So East Africa, including Rwanda, Burundi, they got a bit machete-ish in the 90s, but they seem to be doing quite well now.
Isn't that was the white man's fault though, wasn't it?
Oh, well, for the Belgians for separating them into Hutus and Tutsis based on how they looked, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but
colonizers did it.
Look, let's not get bogged down in who separated who, and who introduced machetes to what. And then his brother Dion Rudakabuna, studies mathematics at the University of Warwick, and is very good at playing brass instruments, and is in the University of Warwick Operatic Society.
Which is why the conspiracy theory that Axel, the suspected mass knifeman, was maybe radicalized to maybe a different Abrahamic religion recently, and that's the conspiracy theory out there, and that's what's also fueling these riots a lot, is that people are accusing the police of suppressing that for obviously for public national safety reasons. And so, why would a 17-year-old from a good family? In fact, he's turning 18 this month. I read, so he's about to be an adult. But why would he? And there's another conspiracy theory that he's been MK Ultra, and he's the Manchurian candidate designed to spark off the race war. And they knew that a kind of African going into a kind of local English little dance group of girls would spark off civil unrest. And that's another conspiracy theorist. I don't believe so because it's too complicated. I think things happen and people react to them without.
Yeah, I think he might just have been schizophrenic or something.
Yeah.
Although Richard said that doesn't exist. He might have had did.
He might have had DID or psychotic spectrum disorder. I thought schizophrenia first, and then my paranoid conspiracy mind said no, it was the MK Ultra thing to bring about the race wars, and I had to fight with that because I have DID. I'm like, stop it, Crazy Richard, stop with these ideas. But it did occur.
Crazy Richard was saying, no, it was the race war. It was the outworking of woke eugenics. He was sent to radicalize European people. That's what Crazy Richard was saying. And then Sensible Richard was like, no,
lad, he's just got schizophrenia. He's
just a nutter.
The most likely motivation is he's extremely mentally ill, but we'll see. Maybe we'll find out that he was radicalized or brainwashed.
He's going to have a rubbish 18th birthday, though, isn't he? He's not going to be able to go down the pub with his mates.
It's not going to be great for him, no.
Not going to be the best 18th birthday. He's not going to be. No. He's not going to be down the pub.
And also, what's prison like for people who hurt children? It's not very fun, is it?
He will probably be protected. He'll probably go into a special prison where he'll be with child molesters, and they will just be protected from the Gen Pop prisoners.
Yeah,
he's too high target. He's too high.
I was talking to this guy in a pub in Holland, and he was Glaswegian, and he was saying to me that he'd done a bit of bird, and he was saying he worked in the kitchens. But the thing is that if you are a nonce or whatever, then you're on a separate wing, and everyone knows that this food that we're making now goes there. So of course they urinate in a shit in a put.
Oh my god!
Nail clippings in a.
Yeah, so, just for everyone in the comment section that is still updating us, we know about DJE and the brick to the head incident. We discussed it 5 minutes ago, but thank you very much for the constant updates. We hope he's okay.
Yes, let's try and get him to come on here. But Charlie's not racist, Sajat Khan. We've not said anything racist. And as for Bangladesh, Bangladesh is kicking off. I mean, they've overthrown the prime minister.
Yeah, the prime minister had to get Saigon out of there by Huey helicopter to the airport because they stormed the compound where she was residing. And we've had so far just over 100 dead in the Bangladeshi riots. And it goes to show you that the power of the mob, any power structure in the world doesn't have enough soldiers to stop millions of people, as we've seen in Bangladesh. And the fact that it's only 100 dead, I'm impressed with. I thought it would be thousands dead, like Tiananmen Square.
Anyway, I'm going to turn some of the questions that we have been sent. So first of all, from God of Pig, King of Dog, and he says £2. Charlie, stop the chocolate people, please.
We have a weekly commenter who is obsessed with the chocolatiers of Geneva and Zurich. And last time I was in Switzerland, I did visit one of the Lindt chocolate factories, and I'm a great fan of the chocolatiers of Switzerland. Thank you.
I thought about going to Switzerland last week to the ISA, the International Society of Intelligence Research Conference. I thought about it, but I didn't go.
Fair enough.
Okay, the next question comes from God of Pig, King of Dog, and he says £2. Charlie, even chocolate people can become British, he says. Okay.
I'm not going to comment anymore on the chocolate man.
I think that there's no reason why chocolatiers can't become British if they pass the citizenship test.
It's a visa question at this point. I mean, it is difficult if you're in the EU to get a visa in the UK, as I know, because I'm trying actively to be an immigrant. I wish to be an immigrant in Portugal or in Spain, and they're blocking me because they're bloody sick of immigrants there.
Yeah, no more tourists. Sorry.
No more tourists.
No more fishing towns that are completely reliant on British and German holidaymakers coming and spending.
Do you think there's something like on a kind of very large, like kind of meta narrative level, metaphysically, that we as human beings, when things get too like safe and easy, we want drama in our lives. We want some excitement and conflict and war. And like, you know, for men, we got to get our testosterone out somewhere. And war, like even little kids, toddlers like to play with soldiers and guns and, you know, cowboys and Indians. It's all conflict all the way up. It's turtles and war all the way up and down.
It might have been too peaceful for too long. I think that's a reasonable suggestion. I mean, where creatures developed and evolved for war, are we not, Ed?
We are, and we discussed this last week with Libden, didn't we? When we talked about crazy women and how they will create conflict and it makes them feel alive. And there is this sense in which our evolutionary match is death. Our evolutionary match, what makes us alive, is things like war, basically, is death, is mortality sentence. That makes us a conflict. That makes us alive in the moment. We even kind of lose our sense of self in that moment, and it could be that too much of a sense of self. You become you worry all the time. You're anxious and you become depressed unless religion hits in. Too little of a sense of self is maladaptive because you don't know what you're doing. And so there's an optimum level of sense of selfness, and we have religious rituals that reduce the sense of self or heighten the sense of self or whatever. And I think that there was what was his name? Ernst Junger, that was his name. He was this German philosopher in the 30s, and he wrote this book arguing that basically like the height of humanness is war. Like that's when you are at your most alive. That's when you're living. And that when he finished World War I, it was just this come down. It was just boring.
War forces God to take a side, to decide who moves forward. It's the most metaphysical thing there is. It's the ultimate choice. It's between existence and non-existence. It's the top binary.
So what you've just said, Charlie. There's a book called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. There's a character called the Judge. So if you Google the Judge on war, he does this beautiful speech that develops what you just said there in the most poetic way. And he says it's the ultimate game. The Judge on war. And he says every game that we play, from chess to everything else, is war. And war is the ultimate game for mankind.
Sorry. Oh, here he is. Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, I'll look that up. Thank you.
It's cool.
Yeah, we are evolved. We are, particularly men. We are evolved to war, and so it could be that if you're in this wealthy situation, then there is but then it is also true that it's the insecurity and the level of inequality and other kinds of things that then push us towards war. There's that element to it as well. I personally just believe in the cyclical theory that our friend Yanni Miettinen has talked about on my channel, which is that we go through these cycles of hormones and there has to be a war every 100 years. Joe Vlog says, great to meet you last week. This is for you, Charlie. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Hey, Joe Vlogs. I gave you a shout out on my Preston video, I think, which is still waiting to be approved by the YouTube censor commissar. So as soon as that's out, you might see it. So thank you.
Andy H, 4.99 says nothing. Thank you, Mr. H. Asa 9.99 says here for darling Charles.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's not lovely. Though he sent it to my channel for some reason.
No, that's good. She says that you should have me on more. That's what they're saying.
Well, I try to, but he's always like, Ed, no, I can't today. Oh, busy. Oh, yeah. No, he's not really. He's just had a baby, for God's sake. I mean, it's a lot of pressure. Right. Okay. Ataraxia $5 says had to take a call. Right. Did Ed take my first super chat about why did UK get rid of death penalty? If you don't have death penalty, you don't have a state. Well, maybe that's lower down. I'm going through them backwards. Neiman Bauer says nothing. New member, thank you, sir. Neiman Bauer, £20 euros says, I love the Charlie Veach show, Free Israel. Thank you very much, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you.
Jacka hoo hoo ha, £7, £10. I wonder what old sausage fingers is thinking of after his butler informs him of the ongoing feuds on his subject's street just now. You mean the king? I imagine the king is, as a patriotic king of his nation, is deeply concerned of the division, and maybe he should consider saying, "Well, look, this shouldn't be happening. Any government that this happens under is incompetent, and I should have to sack the government." I mean, maybe he would.
Yeah.
He might.
Yeah.
Can he do that?
Yes, he can. He's got the royal
theory.
prerogative of ancient. Yeah. And there's a good dramatization on the BBC 15 years ago where King Charles does that over a curtailment of free speech that the left are trying to introduce. I think, and it's like a parallel for Islamophobia laws or heresy laws. And the king says no, and he says, "No, I've got the divine right to rule. I was born to rule." And he walks in full regalia and suspends Parliament. And they all turn to the speaker, John Bercow, and he looks at it and he goes, "Yes, well, the king has this power." And then it erupts, and the military has to protect the king.
What's this called? What's this called? I've not heard of this.
Oh, if you look it up, King Charles suspends Parliament dramatization, you'll find it. And it's very well acted. It's quite a high production BBC thing. And it's very good.
I know there was one in the early 90s called To Play the King, which was a dramatization of a book by Michael Dobbs. And it was Francis Urquhart is the Prime Minister. And there's this person that's obviously meant to be Charles as king. And there's conflict between them. Arbab Shaitan says, "Hi, Charlie. I got away with that Section 5 GMP, Saeed."
Hey, that's my friend Saeed. He's a Iranian big fan of European death metal and other assorted Scandinavian dark rock stuff. And we've been chatting recently because he had an interaction with a kind of a Muslim promotion stand, and it descended into an argument. And 25 young British Muslims surrounded him, and there was a big argument. And it's funny because he's from the Middle East, and he got detained for a racially aggravated Section 5 for shouting at his own people in the street.
I see. Jerry Redmond says, "Ed, why did the UK get rid of the death penalty?" Well, I think it was just part of a broader movement towards being obsessed with harm avoidance and seeing harm avoidance as the most important possible thing. So that was one reason. I think a second reason was that there were just so many cases of miscarriages of justice. And there was at the time, and there was also these weird anomalies whereby two people that commit the same crime, one person get commuted and one person to get hanged. And so there was a sense in which faith was lost in the death penalty. I think the broader cultural issue is probably this shift towards harm avoidance, and so of course you get rid of the death penalty, you get rid of corporal punishment, you get rid of anything like that. But the way that it was argued at the time, and there have been many cases of miscarriages of justice, and just like weird decisions that made absolutely no sense, like the hanging of Derek Bentley, for example. Like, it was absurd that he was hanged; he was clearly mentally retarded. So I think it was those kinds of things came together, and I guess it was after the war, and there was this sense of shock and unity. I mean, what do you think, chaps?
If you were the benevolent dictator, Ed, in this case, would you hand down the death penalty?
For what?
For the stabbing of the 3 young girls.
Yes, of course.
Would you, Charlie?
Yes, but I think we'd struggle because he's under 18. I think that would be the spanner in the works. But no, yeah, I think a healthy society would say that, mass stabbings of little girls, and not only that, there's also the other 7 that are still in intensive care, I think. Mm-hmm. And imagine living with those physical and mental scars for the rest of your life. Those girls will never feel safe anywhere. They're going to have a kind of instinctual fear of strangers. And yeah, I like the idea of once someone is convicted and sentenced to death, of just taking them around the back and neutralizing them.
Yes. You shouldn't have this thing that they have in America. There's people in America that have been on death row for 40 years.
That's unacceptable. That's totally unacceptable. That's effectively torture. That's torture. That's unacceptable.
It is.
But if the sentence was guaranteed to be carried out within 6 months of it being handed down, I would say yes.
Why do they do that in America? Why do they keep them at great expense?
because
lefties.
They have to go through all the appeals, don't they? They go through multiple appeals.
Yeah, but even if they've done that, then they just leave them on death row forever and ever and ever.
It's awful.
In Japan, they put you on death row, and you don't know. You haven't got like a date. You don't know when you're going to be hanged. You don't know. Wow. And they just leave you in the and then eventually one night they just come in. You don't know when that night will be.
Yeah. Oh, that's torture.
But their recidivism rate is the lowest in the world, isn't it?
I don't know.
I believe so. Well, it used to be in Japan. Like if you've been caught once, you don't get caught again because you don't do it again. So God knows. Well, that's probably why, because of policies like that.
Inbred Pigeon says middle class liberals are traitors. Yes, this is correct. They identify with a foreign group over their own group, and when something bad happens, conservatives feel anger towards an alternative group, whereas liberals feel anger towards members of their own group. So they're individualists and they're traitors, yes. Arab Shaitan says, don't let Britain become what Iran became in 79. No, this is what Richard's worried about. We swing too far one way. In the case of Iran, this was that it became very liberal very quickly, and it corrupt liberalism as well, but under the Shah. And then you get this massive, massive counter-reaction where you get one of the most illiberal countries on earth. In which all of the good things about liberalism, and being able to drink alcohol, are taken away. The baby is thrown out with the bathwater, so that is a concern. Yeah, sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat because I've been looking at the super chats. Okay, he killer was effed up, says Anglo-Saxon. Thank you, sir. Will Taylor, what are we on here? Japan is hardcore, says Ruhu Blade. Has anyone been to Japan? Have you been to Japan, Charlie or Richard? Japan?
No, I'd like to, but no, I'm not on Japan.
I'd like to. I also haven't. So, is there, before we round up, then, chaps, is there any further news on the rioting?
Yeah, apparently DJE Media is in hospital, being treated, which is good. So if we're getting updates, it's probably he's not too badly injured. By too badly, obviously being knocked unconscious. So that's good. But after we round up here, I'm going to get straight onto his live stream and just see how Plymouth unfolded, because these are very interesting times. As the Chinese curse says, let them live in interesting times. And what are the chances, guys, that we were born, the three of us, just after the moon landings and we got the internet and all this? What are the chances of being born at the most interesting time of history? What the hell?
It's we had another question, it's from Garhent, $20. Thank you, sir. And he says it's torture for the victim's family. This is with regard to the death penalty. However, keep in mind, police, prosecutors, presidential candidates are dirty, and they put people in jail they know is guilty. Ask Kamala; she did it to Kevin Cooper. Look it up. Okay. I will. I understand that Kamala's husband got his babysitter pregnant.
Wow.
So he's quite Chad.
Classic.
Yeah, he's quite a Chad guy. All right, chaps, where's the cat? Says Jonathan. I don't know where Bart is. He's around somewhere. All right, chaps. Well, it's been very interesting, and goodness knows what's going to happen between now and next Monday. Goodness knows.
All the things.
Many things, and we will see you all then. And goodbye.
Cheers.